My name is Olivia Carter, and today, at 29 years old, I stand at a place I once could only dream of. But the road here? It was anything but easy. This story didn't start with silver spoons, secret investors, or some magical stroke of luck. It started when I was just 21 years old, fresh out of college, armed with nothing but a stubborn heart and a restless mind full of dreams too big for the small world I came from. I had no money. No industry connections. No safety net. Just a laptop, a burning idea, and a refusal to live a life of what-ifs. While my friends celebrated their degrees with vacations across Europe, or landed stable, high-paying jobs at prestigious firms, I moved into a tiny, crumbling apartment on the rougher side of town, an apartment so small that my bed, desk, and kitchen almost touched each other. Most nights, dinner was instant noodles or a peanut butter sandwich. Luxury wasn't a word in my vocabulary, survival was. But even then, even on nights when the electricity cut off and the landlord threatened eviction, my dream burned brighter than any hardship. I worked day and night. I juggled freelance gigs to pay rent while secretly building my vision, a platform I truly believed could change the way businesses connected with customers. No fancy offices. No executive assistants. No startup capital. Just long, brutal hours filled with doubt, caffeine, and blind faith. Failure wasn't some distant fear, it slept in the same room as me. Every time a client ghosted, or a pitch got rejected, or an investor laughed at my face, I felt it tightening its grip. But somehow, I kept showing up, bruised, exhausted, but unbroken. There were days I wanted to quit, so many days. Days when it felt like I was screaming into a void, chasing a ghost, fighting a battle no one else could see. Friends told me to be realistic. Family members asked when I was going to get a real job. Some days, I believed them. But then I would remember why I started, because I refused to live a life of regret, wondering what could have been. Bit by bit, my persistence paid off. A small client here. A positive review there. Little milestones that felt, in that moment, like winning the Super Bowl. I celebrated alone, often with a cheap bottle of wine or just a long, deep breath of relief. Because for me, every win, no matter how tiny, meant survival for one more day. It took years. Literal years of building, breaking, rebuilding, of learning from every painful mistake. Of chasing leads that went nowhere, of hearing no so often it echoed in my dreams. But slowly, something real began to form. Clients started staying. Word of mouth started spreading. Small partnerships turned into real contracts. And the same friends who once pitted my struggles started calling me inspiring. I watched my tiny idea, born in a shoebox apartment, fueled by desperation and grit, evolve into a living, breathing startup. One that, against every odd, grew to a $12 million valuation. There were no fairy tale moments. No overnight successes. No viral stories or sudden investments. Just a relentless, stubborn refusal to give up, even when it felt like the entire universe was telling me to. Looking back now, people love to romanticize the journey. They see the headlines, the numbers, the success story. What they don't see are the nights I cried myself to sleep. The times I had to choose between paying for groceries or website hosting. The moments when I doubted not just my dream, but myself. But I see it. I remember it. Every scar, every failure, every tiny victory, they are etched into my bones. They are the foundation on which everything now stands. If there's one truth I've learned, it's this. Success doesn't come from luck. It doesn't come from privilege. It doesn't even come from being the smartest person in the room. It comes from showing up, again and again and again, when nobody believes in you, when nobody's watching, when even you barely believe in yourself. That's how Olivia Carter was built. And that's how my company was built. One sleepless night, one broken heart, one impossible dream at a time. Success felt sweet, until it didn't. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to believe that I had made it. The late nights, the endless sacrifices, the loneliness, maybe it had all been worth it. Our startup was thriving, expanding into markets I had only dreamed about during those nights spent hunched over a second-hand laptop. The numbers were growing. The recognition was flowing. Investors were finally paying attention. It felt incredible. And yet, somewhere deep inside, there was a small, quiet voice that warned me. Be careful. Success changes things. Success changes people. But I was too exhausted to listen. Too eager to believe that the worst was behind me. So when my friend, someone I had trusted, someone who had walked alongside me in those early, painful years, suggested that he step into the role of CEO, I didn't hesitate. I agreed. Gladly. Gratefully. I told myself it was the logical next step. He was charismatic. He knew how to charm investors, how to work a room, how to play the political games I had never cared for. And truthfully, I wanted to build. I didn't want to spend my days trapped in boardrooms, selling visions to people who only cared about profit margins. So I handed him the reins, believing we would share this victory together. Believing that loyalty, history, and friendship would shield us from the ugly side of business. I was wrong. As the spotlight grew brighter, so did his ambitions. At first, the changes were small, barely noticeable. He started attending meetings without me. Taking calls behind closed doors. Making decisions, big ones, without even mentioning them to me. When I asked, he would smile, pat my shoulder, and say, "Relax, Olivia. We're in this together. Trust me." And because I wanted to trust him, I did. Because I needed to believe that after everything we had survived, he wouldn't betray me. But betrayal rarely announces itself with a bang. It creeps in slowly, disguised as strategy, progress, necessity. One morning, it was raining, I remember that. I walked into the conference room expecting another routine leadership meeting. Instead, I found myself facing a group of stone-faced board members, and him. The air was thick, heavy with something unspoken. He didn't waste time. He didn't sugarcoat it. "Olivia," he said, voice calm, almost rehearsed. "You're no longer essential to this company." For a few seconds, the words didn't register. They just floated there, suspended in the air between us, absurd and impossible. Not essential? Me? The girl who had sacrificed everything, her youth, her sanity, her relationships, to bring this company into existence? The girl who had built the product, found the clients, created the brand, and kept it alive when nobody else believed it could survive? I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and flip the table over, to demand they look me in the eye and say it again. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, frozen, while my so-called friend, the man I had trusted with my dream, calmly explained how the company needed new leadership. How my skill set was better suited elsewhere. How it was in everyone's best interest for me to step aside. It wasn't personal, he assured me. It was just business. Isn't it always? In the blink of an eye, everything I had spent 8 years building, every sleepless night, every broken heart, every tiny miracle, was stripped away. I wasn't just losing a job. I was losing a piece of myself. The meeting ended quickly. Polite nods. Forced smiles. Empty words about future opportunities and keeping in touch. I walked out of that building, my building, and into the rain, feeling like a ghost. Invisible. Unseen. Erased. It wasn't just the betrayal that broke me. It was the realization that the world I had built, the one place where I had thought I belonged, had decided I was disposable. Success had felt sweet. But now, it tasted bitter, like ash in my mouth. I went home that night, peeled off my wet clothes, crawled into bed, and stared at the ceiling for hours. No tears. No anger. Just a hollow, gnawing emptiness. Who was I if I wasn't Olivia Carter, founder of one of the fastest-growing startups in the country? Who was I if I wasn't the girl who had beaten the odds? I didn't have answers. Not that night. Not for a long time. All I knew was that the world moves on, whether you're ready or not. And I had a choice. I could stay broken. Or I could rebuild. I didn't know it yet, but the fire inside me, the same fire that had fueled me at 21, was still there. Buried under the rubble. Waiting. Waiting for the day I would rise again. And when I did, the world would remember exactly who I was. I could have fought. I could have screamed, made scenes, dragged them into courtrooms, and shouted my betrayal from every rooftop. Every bone in my body ached too. Every shattered piece of my heart wanted revenge. But instead, I chose silence. Not because I was weak. Not because I was defeated. But because I knew. Real power doesn't scream. Real power rebuilds, quietly, ruthlessly, brilliantly. I disappeared from the places we used to be seen together. From the rooms where I was once celebrated. From the conversations where my name was now spoken like a ghost story. No statements. No social media outbursts. No pity parties. While the world thought I was broken, I was plotting. While they whispered about my fall, I was planting seeds for my next rise. I started again, from scratch. No fancy office this time. No team. No advisors. Just me, my laptop, and a tiny corner of a co-working space that I could barely afford. It felt eerily familiar, like stepping back into the haunted version of my past. But this time, I wasn't naive. This time, I was sharper. Tougher. Colder where I needed to be. I worked in silence. Built in silence. Dreamed in silence. There were no grand launches. No press releases. No public fanfare. Just brutal, ugly work, the kind of work that leaves you questioning your sanity at 2 a.m. The kind that demands every ounce of you and then asks for more. Day after day, I sat at that cramped desk, building something nobody else could yet see. Coding. Calling. Pitching. Failing. Learning. And doing it all over again the next day, and the next, and the next. I wasn't chasing revenge. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. I was building because that's who I am. And in just 3 months, something incredible started to happen. My new startup, still nameless, still invisible to the outside world, began to breathe. Clients came. Slowly at first, 1, then 2, then 10. And they stayed. Not because I had some flashy name now. But because they trusted me, my vision, my grit, my relentless refusal to deliver anything less than excellence. Each small win felt like a heartbeat. Each new contract, a breath. Before I could fully understand what was happening, the business was growing faster than I had ever dared to imagine. Faster than the first company. Faster than what the board members had predicted without me. Faster than my betrayers could even comprehend. And all of it was mine. Built not on fame. Not on borrowed glory. But on pure, unfiltered resilience. No shortcuts. No handouts. Just the cold, brutal, magnificent work of a woman who refused to die quietly. Meanwhile, somewhere across town. In the glass-walled offices I had once dreamed of. In the boardrooms I had once fought to earn a seat at. The company I had built with my blood, sweat, and sleepless nights was starting to crumble. At first, it was subtle. The cracks hidden beneath fresh coats of PR paint. Shareholder smiles masking the chaos festering behind closed doors. But cracks, no matter how cleverly concealed, always find a way to break open. Ideas were slipping. The heartbeat of innovation, the very soul of what made us different, was fading. The boldness, the hunger, the fire, all of it had come from me. And now, without that fire, all they had left were cold strategies and hollow numbers. The systems I had spent years perfecting. The delicate networks, the trust bridges, the relentless push to do things differently. They weren't just processes on a whiteboard. They were me. My instincts. My obsession with the details nobody else cared to notice. My refusal to settle for good enough. Without me, those systems were nothing but empty blueprints. Tools without a craftsman. Maps without a navigator. And leadership? The leadership they had so confidently praised after pushing me out? It was crumbling too. Because charisma may win attention, but it doesn't build empires. Not when storms come. Not when the cracks demand more than smooth words and pretty presentations. The storm was here. And they had no shelter left. At first, the calls were polite. Formal. Guarded. Once a week, a voicemail here, a polite email there. Hey Olivia, hope you're doing well. We were wondering if you'd be open to consulting on a few things. I ignored them. Not out of spite. Not out of arrogance. But because I had finally learned. Some bridges, once burned, are meant to stay ashes. But as weeks turned into a month, the tone shifted. Urgency replaced politeness. The messages grew longer. The calls more frequent. Every other day now. Sometimes twice a day. Olivia, we really need to talk. Olivia, we're hitting some unexpected challenges. Olivia, can you help us? It would have been easy to revel in their desperation. To feel victorious. To taste the revenge I never actively sought but now found being served, cold and delicious, right at my doorstep. But I didn't. Because deep down, I understood something they never had. It was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right. Still, there was a quiet satisfaction in their panic. A strange, poetic justice in their sudden realization. That I hadn't just worked there. I hadn't just contributed. I was the company. Every fiber of it. Every heartbeat. Every breath. You can't surgically remove the soul from a living thing and expect it to thrive. Their phones wouldn't stop ringing. Board members. Investors. Key clients. Everyone demanding answers they no longer had. Because the answers had walked out that rainy morning and never looked back. I watched it all unfold from a distance. Silent. Detached. And in that silence, I grew stronger. My new company grew stronger. My vision grew clearer. I wasn't their plan B anymore. I was the future they no longer deserved to be part of. Today, I smile. Not the forced, polite smile I used to wear in boardrooms. Not the brittle, tight-lipped smile I wore while swallowing betrayals. No. Today, my smile is real. Full. Free. Because I know something they never did. I was never just a part of the machine. I was the machine. The heartbeat. The architect. The foundation. The same people who once sat across cold conference tables. Looking me in the eye and saying, Olivia, you're no longer essential. They now realize they were wrong. Painfully, publicly wrong. They realize it in every investor call that ends with more questions than answers. They realize it every time a client decides to quietly walk away. They realize it in the empty chairs around the boardroom, where once there had been energy, innovation, and belief. And me? I don't have to say a word. I don't answer every call now. Sometimes the phone buzzes late at night. Their names flashing across the screen like ghosts from a life I buried. Olivia, just 5 minutes? Olivia, we need your insight. Olivia, can we meet? I see the messages. I hear the voicemails. I read the desperate emails filled with apologies wrapped in business language. But I don't always respond. Because I no longer owe them anything. Not my time. Not my ideas. Not my forgiveness. And that's the thing about true power. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It simply exists. Undeniable. Unshakable. I am no longer chasing validation. I am no longer building something just to prove I can. I am building because I love the work. Because it makes my soul feel alive again. Because this time, the dream is mine, fully, fiercely, irrevocably mine. Winning quietly is an art. A discipline. A silent anthem sung not for the world's applause, but for your own soul's satisfaction. I walk into meetings now with a calm that unnerves people. I don't need to prove anything anymore. My existence is proof enough. The people who betrayed me? They became lessons. The pain? It became fuel. And the silence I chose that day, when I could have fought, screamed, and demanded my due. That silence became my sharpest weapon. Because when you rise in silence, they can't predict you. They can't prepare for you. They can't stop you. Today, I smile. Not because they lost, but because I won. Without ever needing to tear them down to do it. Some battles aren't worth fighting. Some victories don't need to be announced. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply living your best life. Louder in your actions. Quieter in your words. And absolutely unstoppable in your spirit. And so, as I look at my growing team, at the fresh ideas swirling in the air, at the life I am finally proud of, I realize the rain that once soaked me wasn't drowning me. It was preparing the ground for something greater. For me. And this time, nobody gets to tell me I'm not essential. Because I don't need to be essential to anyone else's story anymore. I am, and always will be, the hero of my own.